Now, before we get into this next slide, and we're going to spend some time on this because I think this is really interesting, I'm going to ask another question now. We've only been going 6-7 minutes, so we'll see what the answer is. But since I've been speaking, who has sent a tweet out on their mobile phone? Okay. And if it's a positive tweet about me, that's allowed. That's no problem. Continue to tweet away. Who's checked their email since I started speaking? One person in the back. That's no. Oh, two. And thank you for your honesty. If anybody's checked Facebook, I'll be really disappointed. But emails we can get away with. But what I'm trying to get to here, that's not necessarily my fault that I'm a less engaging speaker, if that's what you think. It's because of the era that we're living in at the moment. Now, this is really interesting. I'd really encourage you to go and take a look at these pages. It's called Think with Google. And Google are trying to look at how mobile and how technologies are affecting our day-to-day lives. And a lot of what they've done is around the consumerisation piece. Unfortunately, you can't see it at the moment because of Martin's. A lot of what they've done is around the consumer aspect. And I think there's lots and lots of similarities now to be taken between consumer and learning. We're almost becoming internal marketeers and internal communication experts now within L&D, and I think that's interesting. But what Think with Google has shown, since the advent of the smartphone, and how long has the smartphone been around now? 6-7 years? They're showing that we as human beings have gone from this period of deep attention, where we are able to focus on a single task for an extended period of time, to hyper-attention, where we're living in the moment. We don't live our days so much anymore in years, in days, in hours, but we live in moment, and we access content in the moments, and we access content as and when we need it. So if you were checking your emails, that's not my fault. Your brain is just programmed to work that way nowadays. But this really, I think, is really interesting from an L&D perspective, because if we look at the ability to draw up content now, and I think this is probably the first example of the movement of consumerized technology into the learning space, and that's with YouTube. These studies by Think with Google have shown now that 67% of us have used a YouTube video to solve a productivity issue. So automatically, we've become a nation of plumbers, electricians, mechanics. Now, whether that's a safe thing or not, I'm not sure. But we have access to this content as and when we need it. And then if we take that another step, if we look at Google, so if you double tap Google on your app on your smartphone and look at what your last searches were, mine this morning was, what is a split digraph? Now, the worrying thing was, this was my 5-year-old son's homework, and I didn't know the answer. But I was able to recall the answer at the point of need. Now, that gets us into the arguments of whether this is performance support or pure play learning, and we need to differentiate between macro learning and micro learning. But I think we're really moving into an exciting period now within the learning space.